We'll call the planning session to order. This is a different meeting than what we've done before. This is January the 17th, 2023. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Someone want to offer invocation?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this little town we live in. Dear Heavenly Father, as we go about the business of the city, we just pray that you guide us in the things we do. In all things, dear Heavenly Father, I pray that thy will, not our will, be done. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. I'll shut this door. I appreciate you all being able to be here tonight. I have let the record reflect that 4 aldermen are present. That the Maynard, Morgan, Wood, and Carter. The Reeves is currently absent. I have sent him a message, see if he's just running a little bit late. Matter of fact, he just sent me something back. All right, so he's going to be in momentarily, so we'll just let him roll on in. This is a planning session about the budget. So just to be clear from the get-go, we're really not going to talk about a lot of other things at all. We'll be looking at the budget, and if you have questions, this is kind of the time to ask about things. Some of you may be very astute at your financial skills and background. That is not my forte. I have done many budgets with schools and things like that, and it's very similar to run the city. But some of you may have some other experience that I don't know about, but we're going to talk about a lot of things. But ultimately, we will not be making any decision tonight. So feel free to ask questions and discuss. I do have a little bit of a format. I don't have a formal agenda, but a few things that I would like to share with you and just discuss, so you know it's not only about planning for the finance, but it's about a little training about how the budget works. As you all know, this is my first budget that I will be working through for the city, and this is going to be due around, I think it was July 1. We got to turn that in, is that correct?
June 30th.
June 30th, okay, for the 2022-23 budget season. So we've got a number of documents in front of you. I'm going to walk through some of those, and you feel free to write notes and scratch around whatever you feel like doing. And at the future meetings, we will be in some decision-making process. But this is for your information to take home and study and ask questions so that you understand what we're committed to as far as helping our town be solvent in all of their operations and things that we do. So let's just jump into it. So if you got one document in front of you that is a proposed 2023 salary. I use that word proposed really just because we're talking about 2023. These salaries are already established. These were voted in prior to us getting here. I do want to highlight a couple of things just so you know, and we're not going to get into the business about what people do for the salary and all that. We're just talking about this is what we are committed to as the city. So you can look through there and see, the one thing I do want to highlight on this, and you can take this home and make notes on it. Actually, there's 2 things, but one thing, if you look at the very bottom, it is a patrolman position. We will let the board know in our February meeting that we did have a resignation. I think I briefly mentioned that in the last meeting. But the dollar figure out there beside that salary is the budgeted salary from last budget season. Come on in, come on in. So that was already established, and Alderman Reeves, we're looking at the proposed 2023 salary. You just in time. We're just now getting into it. So, so that was already budgeted in last year's budget. It's nothing new, and I'll show you where that is in just a minute. But because it's budgeted
So the only thing on K. Alexander, the fire department, that one does come out of fire. It doesn't come out of
Oh,
general.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's
correction
the
noted
only
on that.
one.
Yeah, correction noted on that. She does some specific work for the fire department. Okay, I should have caught that. Okay.
So
Any other
let me ask-
questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
We know that this was the salaries we put in to the budget last year.
That's right.
So are we considering raising these? Is that part of it? Because we're going for the July 1st for a year.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, as we look through the budget, that's something you as an alderman might want to contemplate.
Okay. That's what-
I would tell you, rarely does someone's salary get reduced,
Right,
but there are times where someone's salary may be increased.
right.
It doesn't mean that everyone gets a pay raise, but sometimes everyone does get a pay raise. So as we look at our budget, that's something for you to think about. What does our revenue support as far as paying salaries, and what do we need, and what the market is. Let's say if you got to hire another patrolman, or you got to hire a new senior citizens director. I mean, all those things you need to be thinking about as we discussed tonight. So I'm not saying that I'm here telling you we need a raise, because
Right.
there's some things that you all will have to look at. But you definitely need to know what the outlay for salaries are, because you're going to be committed to pay up to this amount
Right.
if everybody works every hour we have planned. So, but again, like I said, it doesn't mean that we're going to pay out that total amount, but I would assume it'd be close to it. And you can see right now by looking at the patrolman, we didn't pay that amount because we hadn't had a patrolman. We've only had our chief of police on duty for several months. Okay. Great question. Any other questions? Simple enough. All right, let's put that aside for a second. The next one I want you to look at is the account balances. We're going to talk about a couple of these real quick. So, and this is as of yesterday, okay? Our CFMO was up here working, even though it was a holiday for most everybody else, she was up here working, trying to get this final number for us. So, you see the amount in general fund, that is, all of these are specific accounts at the bank. So we have this total amount that you see in fund balance in the bank right now, okay? So this is everything we've got, and then you see, one thing we're gonna talk about here later on is and I'm going from the bottom up, ARPA funds. If you get lost, just stop me, because I'm just, got this kind of halfway in my head. APR funds, $98,034. We're gonna talk a little bit about that today. That is something we are gonna be needing to make some decisions on in the future meetings. We do have 4 years left, I think, to spend this money, based on what the previous expectation was, okay? And we'll talk about some of this, because we did get another payment of $79,800, somewhere in that ballpark. You'll see that in a minute. Street aid, we have an account for street aid. You'll see that there. River Day has its own line account, because that is a city activity that we sponsor and support. So we have money in the bank to support that activity. And parks, you see, they have their own line item account. I say line item, their own bank account. And then fire has an account, and then the general fund. So all of that together goes, all of that is part of our budget. But this first page is just specifically to let you know we're not broke. We don't have a lot of money, but we're not broke. We're doing pretty good, okay? Any questions about any of that? Just to let you know, it's just straightforward money in the bank,
I
okay?
just want to ask, where do we bank? Savannah?
We bank in Sardis
Oh, okay.
at People's Bank,
All right.
and they are very helpful and support what we do.
Oh,
and,
I mean,
yeah, so,
I was just wondering.
yeah, yeah, that's where it is. So speaking of that, Alderman Reeves is probably gonna have to go and sign the paperwork, because I think we approved you last meeting to be able to sign checks. But what that requires is, if you happen to be in that position, when we change our banking card, that everybody's name that was on the banking card has to sign all over again. So to give you an example, when Mayor Lowry resigned, I was appointed vice mayor. So I had to sign the card. Well, it was kind of in close proximity to getting that done when Mr. Lowry resigned. So I went to the bank, they said, well, no need to do this now, wait until you meet again, because you just have to do like 25 pages of signing over and over again. So you and I and Ms. Jackson will have to go and do all this paperwork again. So that will be the signature card. So that way, and the reason they do that is to protect the city, that, you know, you got more than one signature on a check, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, Sardis Bank. I say Sardis Bank, People's Bank, I think, correct name. Okay. All right.
People think in service.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions? All right, great question. All right, let's move ahead. So it gets a little bit more detailed if you look at the three documents that look like a statement of revenue and expenditures. If you look through those, this is the kind of the heart of your budget. What I want to make sure we're clear on right out of the gate, so that everybody can follow along. Y'all may, and I don't want to act like I'm talking down to you. I just want to make sure we all are looking at the same thing. If you look over to the column that said, and I tell you what, let's do this. Look at December 31, 2022. It may be the last document, but you'll see it kind of in the middle of the page, December 31, 2022. That's the end date on it. The other two end in June. We'll talk about those in a minute. You see it? I think the top date, well, the print date on it. Let me get up. I'm gonna make sure we got it on. One looks right here. On that one. That might have been the bottom document. The one that says December 31, 2022.
I don't have one that says this.
All right, let's
It's
see.
the bottom one, I think. here.
Yeah, I think there's one right here. One right there. Yeah, the bottom document. You got the right one?
Mine
Yeah,
was
you got
stuck
three.
together, I bet yours are too.
Yeah, flip one more, yeah. There you go. Okay,
Perfect.
good. Okay, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so, these printouts can be very confusing at times. So I want you to understand, again, I think y'all are smart people. This is a budget, okay? But it also shows what we actually spent, the expenditures. This other page we talked about, this is money we got in the bank like right now, okay? So this document you're looking at, December 31, 2022, is not only a budget, but it shows you what we spent up to December 31, okay? So let's walk through it for a second. Look over across the column that says annual budget. You should see that about the third column over, okay? So this is sometimes I had to ask myself a couple times, now which one am I looking at? So this annual budget is what was established last June 30. June 30, 2022, we established this budget, okay? So when you take these documents home to study, you can look at these other two documents I provided you, and they are the complete year's budget of expenditures and revenue for 2022, June 30, 2022, and June 30, 2021. So you can kind of do a little comparison analysis on your own. I'm going to walk through some things that you need to probably look at closely, and then you can study a little bit. And again, if you have questions, let's just look through here. On the page you're on, the annual budget, if you look over to the right, it says YTD, year-to-date actual. See that column? It's not the last one, but YTD actual. This is revenues or expenditures that we have done or received up to December 30, 2022. You follow me? So let's just look at the first one real quick. Property tax, the big item people like to talk about. Property tax across there is $58,504. If you look at last year's revenue, it's what we're looking, by the way, this top column, if you look over to your far left, it says revenues at the top. So that's what we're looking, that's money coming into it. It says $58,504. If you look back at last year's budget, and if you take a peek real quick, that amount was $61,628. The reason it went down is because we had some tax adjustments. Being our first full year and collecting taxes, we had some people that was not correct. We got those corrected. I think we might have had a couple here lately that still, I mean, taxes are going to be a ongoing process to make sure we get the right people their bill and the ones that not supposed to get it and that kind of thing. And there were some adjustments made by the property assessor and things like that. So you follow me? So if you look at that other column, year to date, this shows the $17,433 is what we collected to December 31st, 2022. So this whole first page, if you look down where it says revenue, it's about 30 items on here. That's kind of how you figure out. The last column, it just shows you the percentage of your revenue that's remaining. So if we've already collected $17,433 as of December, you can see that we're kind of on target, but the budget, the tax money is due February 28th, is that right? February 28th. So, and people are coming in daily paying that. So that's kind of how this thing works. I'm going to go back to your left for a second. Current actual, don't get too hung up on that because that is this month. Okay, that's like what happened in December. So every page you have, the current actual, like for June, will be what happened in June. Okay, and if you look at the first column, it says current budget. If you take your annual budget and you split it into 12 months, that's what it comes down to, about a month. Okay, so let's say taxes specifically. If you look at January, you know, most of your taxes come in between January and February. You won't really have anything too much in March, but it just splits over. So honestly, I would say if you're studying this, don't worry too much about current budget because that's just 1 month. What you need to really look at is the annual budget and the year to date. Those two things that help you, and of course the percentage remaining. So let's look through here a little bit. Revenues, we don't budget, by the way. Revenues are pretty much going to be what they are, with a few exceptions. So I'm going to run through these fairly quick. If you have a question, stop me. But you see property tax, an amount there. You see local sales tax. Let me speak of sales tax for a second. There is some business on the House floor that the shared tax is probably going to come back to the state. Our specific portion of that shared tax, we're probably going to get $7,000 back just for Saltillo. So there's some legislation on the floor right now that Tennessee Municipal League and all those are really pushing for that, and we push for it because the tax money that our citizens pay is a lot of it has been going to the state, and there's a piece of that we may get back, and it's about $7,000. So you may see that money come in. So there are some revenues that we may get that may not necessarily be on this page because sometimes we don't know all the details until we already set the budget. Okay. All right, so you got sales tax, you've got wholesale beer tax, and just let me speak.
On the beer
Yeah.
tax, I mean, the wholesale beer tax is actually what's paid to us from like central distributors, DET. And then you also have a state beer tax, which comes from our state of Tennessee tax.
Yeah.
I know that can be confusing sometimes.
So let's highlight this for a second because this really matters. Of course, you know, beer sales for us or for the state, if you look at the year to date, we've already collected $12,000 in beer tax, and that was half of the year. So we're pretty much on target to kind of hit that $30,000. So that kind of lets you know that, you know, that budget amount that was set, 30 grand, was probably on target. And so that's based on previous revenue. So those aren't going to change a lot. You got the cable TV franchise. There's some things that we receive because of the cable TV. And I'm going to have to step it up a little bit because I want you to be here too late. Liquor license, we got a few people in town that receive a liquor license, not many. We got some money come in from TVA, and you can just look down through here to see what money comes in. State sales tax, you see that on here. So you got a local and a state that you receive. So the sales tax I was mentioning earlier was a shared tax that's going to come back to us. So you'll see that somewhere in there. You got, you know, other things in here, gasoline tax, different things. I don't know if you need explanation on them. Let's look at the CFO GHSO grant. Look at that for a second. Grant revenue. It's on down if you see it. It's the item number is 33,490. Y'all see that? Mm-hmm. So if you look across over there, it doesn't look like we budgeted anything. We don't know that we're going to get it sometime, so it's not going to show up in the budget. But I think we are going to get. Didn't we get some money from that?
And just got it.
Just got it.
$1,220.
So that was.
They run about 90 days after
Yeah.
Stephen submits it.
And that's involving the police department, right?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right.
So it doesn't have anything on there, but you'll see later that we get some money in that revenue. So we can't always count on that. City court funds, we budgeted $15,000, and you can see that in that year to date, we hadn't really gotten close to that too much at this point, which is something to think about when you're operating a police department with a chief of police and a patrol. Sometimes you want them to kind of balance out a little bit. We don't want to be a city just known for writing a bunch of tickets. That's not what we want to be. We do want to keep that in mind, but they do a lot of warnings and a lot of contact and those kind of things. So you'll see that budget there. And we just estimated, you know, about what it would cost. And then if you look below here, there are some other things that may or may not be consistent revenues for us, such as, let's say, community center donation. We can't really count on that to operate on because you may not get it. If you get it, it's great to help community center, but you can't count on those kind of things. The poker run. although revenue was placed in here of $6,000, you can't always count that that's the revenue we're gonna have. Give you a prime example, if you look down where it says fundraiser Heritage Festival. So last year, tourism, Hardin County, gave us some money. So that went into that tourism budget. They're gonna give us some more, we believe, this year. I believe it's gonna pass, and we'll have additional money in that line item. We'll talk more about that at our board meeting. So some of these monies and fundraising things, you just can't count on, because you may get them, you may not.
Yeah, they're non-verifiables.
That's right, non-verifiable.
That's the term.
So if you go down through that annual budget column, the very bottom of it, with every item in there, is $322,970. Y'all follow me at the bottom there? If you take your calculator when you go home and look through things that, hey, this is revenue that we're pretty much know is gonna come in. I did my own, and I come up with, $199,054. Now that was a little bit of a low ball based on what we have on the paper. But I'm just saying, hey, if I had to go today and say, I know this is coming in, this is what I know is coming in, okay?
I do got one
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
Sports betting.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
That is
I know it's
the,
revenue, so it's good, but
Comes in our state of Tennessee check, it's
Yeah.
it's fairly new
Yeah.
income, but
Yeah.
it's something that,
that's the online sports betting. We get a percentage of that.
okay.
We don't encourage gambling, but it's kinda like drinking.
Okay.
We get a little money from both of them.
Devil's got to pay his tithe too, man.
that's right, we like those sin taxes.
Yeah, alright, so, those are the, revenues that you have here. So you can look through those and kind of think about them, and what I do is I go through that far right column, and I just say, hey, how much of this have we received as of December? What you can do is you can take the previous 2 years, and if you wanna glance over one, you can see if you received them or not, and if you don't mind, just jump over to, June 30, 2022. June 30, 2022. All right, here's a good one. State beer tax. Look down through revenues and see that. Seems like we're talking about drinking, but this is one that just kind of jumps out. State beer tax. The previous year we budgeted like $300 worth of revenue. Well, we took in $4,061. That's like 1,200% over budget. You follow? So, so this year, the state beer tax, notice that it was increased. You see what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
So that's kind of way you budget. It may go up or down, but you got to think about how much can I depend on to operate the city. All right, so that's the gist of revenue. Any other question about revenue?
I do wanna apologize, I did my adjustments and they're month 13, I only pulled this through month 12. So that's the reason
Oh,
you're
okay.
22, the one that ends June 30th of 22, that's the reason you've got the property tax receivable.
Okay.
The auditor had me move it to
Yeah.
31500,
Yeah.
but we did an adjustment for that, I should have pulled it through 13, I didn't think about it until
I
I
got you.
saw it here.
And let's elaborate on something real quick that she had mentioned. So, Ms. Jackson works hand in hand with the auditors and other finance specialists that help us to make sure we're spending money from the proper account or putting money in the proper. So sometimes a auditor or someone will call and say, hey, by the way, you got this entered, which is not too much of a problem, but we would prefer you entered it here, because we're gonna be the ones that's gonna audit you, and we wanna make sure that any money in this particular area goes in this particular line. So it's not uncommon, even doing with school business, you're doing a fundraiser or something, and they say, oh, by the way, instead of doing a fundraiser in this number, you need to do it in this one, because sometimes things change in auditing practices that they helps to clarify where the money is coming and going. So you'll see that from time to time. Also, budget amendments, you'll see that we have to do because revenue may come in or an expenditure that we have. One of those examples is our street aid and our paving and those kind. We had to move some things around based on what the auditors expected to see happen. So that's a common practice. All right, great question. Anything else about revenue? All right, so we're gonna spend a few minutes on the expenditures, and we'll try to get to this wish list business. So if you look at the bottom, the expenditures, some of those things are consistent. If you look at your salary page, you're gonna see some of that stuff pop up. I do want to clarify, if you will, turn about the third or fourth page which says street aid. And we'll just start with that one real quick. I'll show you something we wanna try to avoid. Street aid, page 4. Street aid is its own fund, but it all ends up coming back to general operation, okay? So if you look at the revenue, there's only 2 lines. It's a $16,000 revenue, and it's a $60 revenue from interest. So of that $16,060, that is your operating budget. But if you look below that, where the expenditures are, there's a few line items here. And if you look at the very bottom line, you'll see parentheses, $3,440. We kind of want to avoid that, because if you look at the total revenue based on total expenditures, we kind of overspend. Okay? Now, it's not a bad thing necessarily, because in the end of our budget, we are still receiving in more money than what we're spending. We'll look at that in a second. But while we're looking at this page, here's the kind of things that we need to think about adjusting. See expenditures, salary. You may say, well, who's the salary in street aid? Well, that's your maintenance man. So what we may need to do to make this balance out is to reduce that salary from $15,000 to $11,000. That way we can still pay our maintenance man up to $11,000 for mowing the ditches, cleaning the ditches out, all those things they do regarding street work, and add $3,500 in the general fund where it says maintenance salary. We'll look at that in a second. That way your street aid is, you're not going to go into the red on your street aid money. So you want to try to avoid that. But if you look at total expenditures for street aid, there's not a lot of other expenditures. It's a salary to keep things moving. There's a little bit of paving money there. There's some street sign money. I say paving, yeah. Repairs and maintenance, that's what it is. $2,500 repair and maintenance, fuel and oil, street lights. So these kind of things, when you look at the budget, what do we want to do? What are we planning? What are our goals? That's where you need to think about, hey, look, we want to put, another $20,000 in this spot because we want to do this kind of work. Not that I'm telling you to, I'm saying that that's how your budget will work. But you can't spend more than you're expecting to receive. Okay? All right. Any question about that? A little question, but look at the last page real quick. If you go back, and this is up until December 31, the last page, annual budget. When you look at everything, all the revenues and all the expenditures, we're $36,817 to the good. So your street aid money and your general fund revenue add up to that top figure, 33,930. Okay, and then your expenditures, they both add up. So in the end, we still did a good job on our budget. It just don't look good on street aid. You don't want to go into the red. It doesn't look great. It's not a problem. It just doesn't look great. It works out both ways, but you want to try to avoid being in the red. All right. Any questions about street aid? All right. Let's look through expenditures. And this is going to take just a minute here. You look through here, some things that are consistent. When you start kind of thinking about what we spend, things that are consistent: electric, gas, the utility stuff. You can look back at the previous 2 years and say, hey, that's about what we spent the last 2 years. That's the way you do your budget at home, I know. You think about what you spent last year, how much you got to have in the bank when gas goes up, a significant amount. So you look through that, you got electric, you got some supplies, and a couple of these things are blank at the beginning. I don't know if it was something that didn't pull right.
Numbers that the auditor had me add back.
Yeah, okay,
That's part of the adjustment.
I got you. So the electric, if you go down to, capital outlay, you know, it's not on there. You got, here's your maintenance salary on page 2.
Alright, so what is budget 41900?
That is general fund.
That's the general fund.
Mhm.
Okay, so, you see your salary for maintenance. So you see it's only a little bit there, we got 2 maintenance guys, and so you'll see another entry about maintenance. One thing I want you to do is tell you another constant, and you see salaries, you can go back and check on this paper, based on what I got you, it should all kind of match up, but go down to that page, all the way till you see the word dispatch. And if you're looking at numbers, it's 00402.
Mhm.
So we budgeted an expenditure of $5,000. So far we spent $2,800. That is a county dispatch fee, 911. We get a bill every month, right? Every month, every couple of weeks at least.
Yeah.
So that's something you're gonna continue to see. It's not gonna change too much.
Yeah.
If you go, let's see, and you can look at any of these things, and I would say,
Karen, 421 is police.
Okay.
422 is fire.
just to show you some anomalies here a little bit, look back up the page till you see repair and maintenance is 00260. So we budgeted $2,000 and we spent $43.63. So we're like 100% over budget. You follow me? Y'all see that line item? So I can't speak tonight to exactly what we did there, but if we want to get down to the nitty gritty, we can say, all right, we did this repair here, we did this repair here, something that we didn't plan on, that we had to do, and that's why it went over budget a little bit. Let's see, I'm not sure, another one, there's another maintenance and repair, and Ms. Jackson, can you speak to what the difference is in the 2 repair and maintenance supplies on this page? So you got one is $260, the $600 that we spent.
Yeah, that's for the police department.
So the 260, 260 is police?
Well, the 110, 421, 260 is
Yeah.
police.
All
The
right, so
one at the
that's-
top is under general.
Okay, all right.
So that's, if,
All right.
that's air conditioner repairs and things
Yeah,
like that,
I
under
got
the
you.
419s.
Yeah. So y'all follow that?
And this is fire.
Yeah, controllables and
Yeah,
non-controllables.
yeah. So the police thing she's mentioning was, we had to fix a air condition in the, police building over here, our courtroom. And so other general fund may be fixing something over here in this building.
Generator
Yeah.
and things like that.
So she can print out a very detailed report of where every dollar went and what it was for, including like our maintenance guys. I can say, look, tell me what we paid our maintenance guys on. She can print out a report and she says, well, we paid them this much from park fund because they were cleaning the park for an event. And they paid this much from street aid because they were working on mowing the grass that month too. And then also in this week, they may have done something for the building here. So it may come out of a couple of different funds. But we can go down to the nitty gritty on that. Let's see, I don't know if there's anything else on there you want to look at specifically, but you can look at where you went over budget and where you have not spent hardly any of your budget. For instance, you got election, and that's kind of about midways on this page. We got 00414. We had on our paper a budget of $3,000. Well, we don't have to pay anything for the election. It's just, that in past years, I think there was a fee associated with hosting the election, but lately it hadn't been a fee. Okay, so some of those things you'll see like that. I'm not sure if there's any other questions from this page that you may have, but some of them that are over 100%, some of those issues that have been things that, like Alderman Reeves said, just think you didn't plan on it, it just happened. You had to fix a water leak, you gotta fix a roof leak, that kind of
I
stuff.
wonder where our, where we, on the capital outlay, out of the general fund. I wonder what does that entail, kinda, sorta?
That would be,
A big picture, not,
that would be a truck, a tractor,
okay,
things like that. They
okay.
consider that capital outlay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Police
Anything
car.
that is considered like, real property that we'll own, yeah, that's
Okay.
your capital outlay.
Okay,
So, let's just speak to that for a second. So, and you correct me now, cause you're the CMFO. So, with our APR funds, if we decide, hey, we're gonna buy a tractor, and it's gonna cost $30,000. That money would come out of the ARP fund and go into the capital outlay?
Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
deposit it into general, and then we will record it in the capital
Capital
outlay.
okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
For anything that you've got that comes in and has to have somewhere to go out.
Okay.
So if we knew we were planning on buying one, we'd need to go ahead and put it in the budget for this, or wait until we was moving it.
It would be a good thing to plan that expenditure in your
Next
budget review.
Yeah,
Because see, auditors don't like you moving money around too much,
no.
unless you absolutely have to. You need to kind of plan for it. So that's why we're meeting tonight, so y'all can think about that. And we're gonna get to the other little wish list stuff to think about, because that APR fund, we're not gonna get that every year.
No.
This is, I mean, you got that this time, and it was a blessing to the city, but, it's there for us to use, and that's gonna help us in the long run. We're doing some things, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but anyway. All right, let's see, look at page 3 here real quick. Page 3, street lighting, one that everybody likes to talk about. So we haven't gotten the December bill in, I don't think, or the January bill, but we've got lights been up for quite a while. I don't know what that's gonna cost us, but we budgeted $25,000 last year. It's only spent $6,600 thus far, and, you know, we may wanna consider, hey, we might wanna do 20,000 instead of 25,000. But we'll see what the bill comes with the Christmas lights. We may change our mind, the bill may be a little higher, I don't know.
And the previous
Yeah.
year it was 15,000, I don't know
Yeah.
why it was raised to 25,000 unless we
Yeah.
thought we were
Because
really gonna do a
everybody-
lot.
Because everybody was wanting a street
Yeah.
light.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not just saying that, that probably came out wrong. Everybody was wanting.
We were
this-
adding more.
We were adding more
yeah,
street
but
lights.
that is a very good point, because of what we discussed in our last board meeting. I gave you some data. So,
Right.
if we are truly gonna put some new streetlights up, the pole, the light, all that, you know, that we need to think about, hey, wait a minute, let's keep that $25,000, because if we're on the same pace as last year, we're only gonna spend $12,000 this year, if we're on the same pace.
Right.
That gives us a few thousand to work with, but once you put that street light up, you're gonna be paying for it from now on. So be it $1,200 extra a year or a month or whatever it be, you're gonna have to pay for it. But that is exactly the thing
Right.
to consider.
And there are, and I'm not downplaying it, because if
Yeah.
there are a few places, I think, that need street lights for the safety of the people, of
Yeah.
the citizens
Yeah.
of us.
Right.
I believe that.
Right. All right, so great point on that. And then you look down to, let's go to River Day expenses for a second. I wanna clarify something on this that.
Wait a minute, can we go down, can I ask you a
Sure.
question? Can we go down, like, what, I'm asking Nita this, and I think we're getting a clearer understanding from our point of view.
Yeah.
What is 44,300?
443 is senior citizens.
Senior citizen,
Mhm.
okay?
And then 444 is parks.
Parks, okay,
445 is special events.
all right.
No, I'm sorry, I told you wrong, I'm sorry. 444 is not parks either, I'm sorry, that's 446, I think it's parks.
Okay.
444 is community center.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What did you say 445 was?
Special
Special
events.
events.
So if you look at all those little things there, that I'm gonna address the River Day portion of that special events.
The 446 was.
So-
Parks.
Parks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, y'all with us? You with us? Okay, so just to be clear, River Day, we have money in the bank in a River Day account, as we discussed when we started, okay? On this page, last year, when we did our budget, we budgeted $6,000, like, hey, we're gonna have to spend $6,000 to host this event. So what we've been doing is we've been spending money to host the event, but a lot of our vendors and things like that have been paying us back. So we're not really in the red, okay? We're making just a little bit of money. We're paying for the event basically. But one thing I do want to point out is when we get ready to do our budget, if y'all remember the ones that were here, we made a decision to budget $7,500 for that specific event.
Right.
That was after we did our actual budget. So
Yeah.
when we get ready,
We didn't amend, we
That's
never
right.
amended the
Never
budget
amended.
to include the show
Yeah.
7,500.
so when we do our budget this year, that's something we want to make sure that we don't forget. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was something that was already decided, and we just didn't amend it. There are a couple other things here that may not happen. You know, it just depends on what it is. You know, one of them is like fireworks show. That may not pan out. We'll talk about that at the board meeting. We'll talk about it at the board meeting. A Christmas expense. We budgeted $2,000 for it. I think we spent $800. That was pretty good. So, you know, you may say, hey, look, we want to leave it there. We found these other things that we'd like to have done, but we didn't do it. Or, hey, we spent what we think we need to spend, we'll knock it to $1,000. I mean, it's just, that's something that you need to compare as you go home and look at it. Also, you see the maintenance salary. That's a part, 44,600 is, what'd you say? The parks, yes. So we got a little money over there to pay the maintenance guys to go up there and cut the grass and pick up the trash and clean it up, that kind of stuff. So their money kind of comes in different pieces of the general fund. And so these numbers help us to track where we spent the money on them. Contract labor, $3,000. That's when we have to hire somebody to come in. We'll talk about that at the coming board meeting. And then look at, we spent $44.94. We had some things we had to do, and I think we talked about those at a previous budget, or previous meeting when Mayor Lowry was here about what had to be done. I think one of them was this right here, wasn't it last year? This wall, or this
Yes.
previous year?
Yeah.
Built this and some other stuff, okay? All right, so, we're not setting the budget tonight. You've got information to go and kind of mull over. The process will be, I and the CMFO will go through the budget. We will make some recommendations, and then we discuss it. So, in the next few meetings, we gotta get this done by July. We don't have to have it done by February, but we need to get started talking about it. You'll need to bring your calculator to one of these meetings, because what we need to do is that we start setting our budget. By the time we get down to June, you need to be able to add up on the spot how much we got coming in and how much we're spending, so that you know when we approve the budget, how much you are agreeing to spend, okay? So,
And
yeah.
I can pull, the extra reports, especially on the repair, maintenance and supplies. Last year we went and combined all of that. It was broken down separately before. But I can pull a report for anything that y'all need. So if you need, I'm kinda going through here and circling what I, just make sure.
Yeah.
That way we can look and kinda see which way it went.
I appreciate that. I think that would,
Well, I think it makes it a little easier to understand.
It does.
If you can see it that way.
well, and
Well, let me
that's
make
gonna
sure.
be what it's gonna be.
Yeah, that's right. Let me make sure you understand. So, we've gotta get our budget finalized by June 30th, submitted, gotta be in the paper and all these kind of things. I'm not gonna come in here in the last meeting in June and say, hey, this is what, we need to decide on the budget right now. That's why we're having this planning session, so that you know kinda what it costs to operate the city, and you kinda have an inkling of what we're gonna do. So let's just think about what we're gonna do for a minute, okay? I mentioned at the last meeting, think about your wish list. So let's get to this for a second. Any more questions on the budget? So y'all can study on it, think about it. We'll have some of these things come up at our next meeting, I'm sure. But look at what I provided you. Now, this is just my little thing I put together, and some of this is over previous conversations that we've had as a board. Some of these things have already been determined as a board. Some of these things are not new to you, some of these things are. But what I would tell you is the APR funds are available to us to budget out, and we all agree on what we think is in the best interest of our community to use this money for. And so this wish list is just something that I have put together over several months. It's not just something I just thought of last night, but I wanna just go through a couple of these items. You can read them for yourself.
Now, this wish list, would it be coming out of the ARP fund?
Well, that's a good question. Would it come out of the APR fund, or would it come out of general fund? It kinda, it's some decision to be made.
Right.
So let's say, for instance, there may be something on here we wanna take out of the parks budget. But we got a budget for that in parks.
Right.
We might not wanna use the APR, let's just say if it's something that costs $500, we might not wanna take it out of APR fund. We might wanna use that money for something else. So let me give you an example. So, just kinda see if you can scroll down through and see one that says siren. It's about, 2/3 down the page. Siren. If there's typos on this, I apologize. I did kinda, draft it, as far as I didn't want you to look at my handwritten note. $18,000 pre-approved. Now, that's a roundabout number. There is a specific amount that we said we're gonna spend on these siren grants, and that money's coming directly out of the APR fund. So that 18,000 of 98,000 is already spent. You follow me? So that one's already a done deal. So you can believe that's been decided. Another one I got on here, let's see, I think it was about some air conditions in the gym. I don't see it right
Yeah,
off.
it's up
Yeah,
there,
4
4
window
window
units.
units.
Pre-approved.
4 1 area, yeah. So we already decided on that several meetings ago. It's gonna be about, $3,000 to get those put in there. We decided on that. There's some other things on here, let's say like, a microwave for the gym. Don't really need it, but that's something we talked about. I don't think we ever agreed on. Don't really need it, be nice to have it. So all these things are things you need to think about for the city. Nice to have it, don't need it, maybe another time. Or, hey, we really gotta have this. And let me just throw one out there to you that most of you don't realize. The second bullet on here. A staircase in the fire hall for access to storage.
Oh, yes.
Which y'all
Need
may
that.
not realize that above this building, we got a lot of storage space. There's fire apparatus and equipment that they go up and down to get, and there are archives of city documents up there that they have to go out there to get. And the way they do it, also some t-shirts from Riverdale up there. The way they do it, they take a extension ladder, lay it up against the wall, carry a box on your shoulder, climb that ladder.
Yep.
Somebody's gonna get hurt doing that.
Unless I'm there to hand it.
Yeah, yeah. So that is just, from my standpoint, a wish list item that is
Well, that's
Well,
a
the-
safety issue too,
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
technically.
so speaking of that, since you brought the word up, safety, infrastructure repair, those are the things that you need to think about prioritizing on what we really do or need to do, because there's some things in our city that have not been done just because we didn't have money to do it. We have operated as best we could with the funds that we got, and we have done, I say we, the previous mayor and the previous board of aldermen for several years have done a really good job making ends meet and providing and buying police cars, doing things. But we've got an opportunity to carry that on by getting some things right. Give an example, police car. If we have another patrolman, we've got one car that's marked, and if it goes into disrepair, the other car is not marked. That other car needs to be painted, and some ghost stickers need to be put on it so that we have an extra car for an event, or one breaks down, we have one. So those kind of things, if you look through here, fire protection, do they need something? Police protection, culverts, street repair. I just got in general street paving. If there's some things that we want to say, hey, look, we want to use some of this money to finish paving some of these streets. We did quite a bit of that last year. I just got some different things on here. I don't know if anything jumps out at you. Here's a big ticket item. And this is an example of capital outlay. I just put this on here for myself. Purchase a brush truck for the fire department, okay? We got a big old humongous ladder truck. We got a big old pumper truck. And neither one of them have hardly left the garage. If there's a fire in my backyard, we don't have any equipment that can get to it to put it up on a tree line. If the fire at Mr. Carter's house, they can't get back there in the field to put it out. The county does, county's got a brush truck. But I'm just saying as an example of something that may be a wish, may not be affordable right now, but somewhere down the road, we may be able to surplus some other stuff to be able to buy something else. So you gotta think of all those moving parts that may be available. I put on here, something you think about, where was it at, gym stuff? No, it's park, playground stuff. Where'd that go? It's like, oh, here it is, first page. I looked at some commercial park equipment. Ours is, not fantastic. It's not real appealing. Some of it is, aged and needs, it's not in disrepair, but it could be replaced. Minimum $17,000 to get one of these multi, kinetic, sensory things for our kids. And, it's expensive. Park equipment is not cheap. Now, there are some places you can get used or refurbished park equipment. You can do that too. It might not cost that much, but so all these things are wishes. I will tell you, you're probably going to get some recommendations from me as we move forward for things that are safety oriented to do, and infrastructure things. Our roof repair to the doctor's office that we approved to do, that probably will need to come out of the APR fund, because it may be $5,000, it might be $4,000. We won't know till we start getting our bids in. But we approved to do that, so we gotta have money to pay for it somewhere. Probably don't wanna come out of general fund, because that's something that is urgent, it needs to be done, and we've got money to do it. So, when community watch this video about what we're doing, we have a limited amount of tax money that comes in from property tax, very limited amount. But we are blessed to be able to have other things that come in, like the beer tax, the gas tax, the sports betting. Those other things will be consistent. But in the end, be it you a fan of taxes or not, property taxes or not, we're gonna get to a point that we had to have a property tax anyway, because we just paid a bill for liability insurance last month was like $13,000. So if you just only had property tax, that's $13,000 right out of that we have to pay a liability tax. So stuff like insurance and electric bills, they're gonna continue to go up. The state getting back part of our share tax, $7,000, that'll be a blessing. So in the long run, as you look at your budget, that's another conversation about your tax rate. Do you need to continue the rate at this level, or is it something you can reduce at this level? But in the end, you got a limited amount of money coming in, and you certainly got some bills that have to be paid. So you gotta have that revenue stream to get it all done. Give you an example. Somebody want a splash pad? That's a luxury, okay? Our community might not even want one of those, because we got the river. We don't need a splash pad, you know what I'm saying? So there's some things that would be nice to have that we just, splash pad, the one in Clifton, I think they spent $100,000 on. Very nice, very nice. It's very small, but it does the job. I've been on it with some kids in the park, and even talked to the mayor over there. But I think they spent $100,000. And if you wanna see what it looks like, go over to Clifton downtown on the river. It's a beautiful little splash pad right there by the river. And it's really nice, but that's a luxury. They have a little bit more income than what we do. So when you start looking at, hey, I'd like to have this, or I'd like to have this, is it a need? Is it a luxury? That's what we need to think of. And then as we move in the future, that grants come up, some of these things might be paid for by grants. Grants come up and things that we can do, park grants and things. there's other alternatives to get those things down the road, but anyway.
Our splash pads are mud puddles.
Really, yeah, I got you,
We're
yeah,
kids.
country mud puddle, country splash pad, that's what I, water hose and a,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I did. Alright, so any questions about any of that? These are the things for you to study. We hope those that are watching the video, understand what we're trying to do here, is to use our money wisely and the funds that we've received, and trying to get, the best use out of it. So, if you have a community member come to you and want something, or this, want to know question, this is nothing secret about this. This is out there on the table. They can come in and look at what our budget plan is. Salaries are public knowledge. I mean, I've been a school principal for, well, half of my career, so I've been in education for 30 years. My salary is public domain. Anybody can find out what I make anytime, just like yours.
Google it right up.
So there's nothing secret about it. We'll tell you, okay? Spending money, be good stewards of what you receive. That's all I can say. Go ahead.
In thinking about being good stewards, the APR fund, we don't, here again, may never get that.
That's right.
So to look at that big sum of money and compare it with our need or want list, that doesn't have to be spent for what, 4 more years or something.
That's right.
So-
Right. Yeah, we don't have to
We
spend
don't
it all
have to
today.
spend,
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, on those 4 window units, we were going to do it out of the APR, right?
That's what we agreed to.
That's what
If
I
you
was
go back and look at our minutes,
Okay.
that was agreed to several, I think in the first round that we received, and I didn't speak to that in our budget, but when you look at your, December budget, you'll see APR funds, $79,800, you'll see that as it came in, we recorded it as a revenue. You won't see that next year as revenue, because we won't get it again.
When are the plans to all right, so what we have pre-approved on this wish list, the air conditioners, when are they gonna be put in?
Well, we actually discussed putting them in
'Cause I had
last.
forgotten it, yeah, until
We
you said
discussed
that.
putting them in last spring, with some other things kinda went on, we just didn't do it. Also, somebody to put them in correctly, because they are kinda off the ground, and to
Right.
put them in right, the other ones are, they're pretty much shot, hanging kinda out of the window, so there's a pause that was put on it because of getting it done, so, and of course, as it gets into the fall, you can't hardly get an air conditioner.
Right.
And so we had talked about a couple of different options. That's what, we just got put on hold. We just didn't do it. Plain and simple, we just didn't do it.
Well, they'll start hitting the shelves in February.
And as you've got this wrap gazebo post downtown, see if you don't wrap them, they're gonna have to be painted anyway, so you're throwing
Yeah.
good money
That's
after
not
that.
You
telling
either contract with somebody to paint the post, or you wrap them and never have to
It's
paint them again.
maintenance free.
I mean,
It's horrible, I mean, I don't mean that to be
Yeah,
ugly, but
they look terrible.
it needs to be cleaned, our downtown area needs to be cleaned up and maintained, that's the only way to do it, because
Yeah.
is to the vinyl wrapping, to me, because it's.
Yeah. And again, when you budget, you may choose to try to target the APR funds. I will tell you, and I guess I don't know how the pastor would say it, but I close with a little bit of this. So we have a specific purchasing plan that you guys approve. Anything above $2,500 that we plan to do, we have to have 3 bids. So the doctor's office, what you're gonna get in the future is a bid package to have that roof repaired, that we have to have 3 sealed bids, and we will choose the lowest bidder unless there's some other issue that we don't have to choose the lowest bidder. So there are some particulars about that, but typically you would choose the low bidder on the project. But talk about wrapping post. So if we choose to wrap some posts downtown, we kinda have to estimate, this gonna be more than $2,500? Because if it is, that requires us to send out a formal bid package and invite people to bid on it. Okay? Now, as we move through this term, and of course, my term is gonna be over in 2 years unless I get reelected, you need to consider getting things done in line with your budget. So what I mean by that is, there is a formalized process where we can increase that $2,500 to like 5,000 or less or more, but you still have to have 3 quotes. You follow what I'm saying? The only thing it eliminates is a formal bidding process. You still, so now, to get the roof repaired, I've got to send out a formal bid process to people who think they want to do this work. If that limit was $5,000 or $4,999, I could solicit people to do this work, but I would still have to have 3 people give me a quote on it. And so it just makes the process for a small town easier to get things done. Because what's gonna happen with doctor's office, we're gonna have to meet again to open the bids and approve whomever gets the job. So as we look at some of these infrastructure things that need to be done, we may have to meet a little extra. So just kind of, you know, and I'm not saying do one or the other, I'm just saying the procedure is in place. We're doing everything exactly like the auditors like to see it, and the state of Tennessee purchasing guidelines, we are right in line with what the expectations are. So there is some opportunity to change the amount, the ceiling limit. There's an opportunity to change that. I'm not asking you to do that, you know, that's just letting you know where we're starting from, to make sure we're having this meeting, get you some training, let you look at the budget and study it, and then we'll come back and make some motions and talk about what we really want to do, and hopefully finalize our budget, and plenty of time to get it in by June the 30th. So, any questions? That was my concluding remark, I guess.
So we can kind of prepare our lives at home. What are you anticipating? How often will we be meeting for this process?
Okay.
We're meeting for
Yeah.
our regular meeting,
Yeah,
and then if a beer board meeting or not,
yeah.
and then, so will we be doing that February, March, April?
Well, let me tell you what I foresee, and then unfortunately, our MTS representative wasn't able to be here tonight. He had surgery on his foot, so he may be at the next meeting, but I foresee another planning session specifically to discuss the APR funds, so that we can all look at the planning, the list, and talk about the list and eliminate some things, instead of taking, you know, an hour and a half out of a meeting to make a decision. So we can talk about the list and priorities, and then we can get to our meeting, and then we can pass motions and things. So the budget itself will have to come before the board meetings from this point, because you got the information. I'm gonna make some recommendations based on what I know about the budget and what the CMFO works on. So we'll have a little bit more detailed idea of what's going on and what's coming than you probably will. But the issue is, your documents and your study, you can kind of compare this year's budget to what we recommend, and you may have some alternative recommendations. You might say, hey, look, well, River Day, I think we need to change it from 7,500 to 2,000. We don't need that much money. Or you might say we want to change it to 10,000. That, my submission to you as mayor would be a recommendation. Doesn't mean that's gonna be the budget. But from all this stuff, I think our opinions should be close in line when we all agree to the budget. I'd rather have a unanimous vote on the budget. I wouldn't want to have 2 standouts to not approve the budget, but it happens. I mean, it's not anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, the more we can discuss what we want to do, study the budget, and make sure we are in line with the expenditures as they need to be, this is just really the best practice and way to go about this.
Well, and I know one thing, I mean, like if you look under special events, you've got an electric column on there. That was originally set up because when we put the poles in, we paid those electric bills out of the Riverdale account. Now they come out of general fund, so you don't need that $1,800. Shouldn't be
Yeah.
budgeted because you've got it somewhere else.
Yeah, well, let me,
You know, so if there's little things like that that I know that you all probably aren't aware of, but you will be.
Well, let me speak to that very thing. You're talking about the pole we put for the river, for the barbecue festival?
Now, that's the ones here, there's two
Well,
poles
okay,
here,
all right.
yeah.
So we did spend, I think, out of parks, or, I can't remember which budget it was, $1,800 to put in a pole specifically for the barbecue festival. That's a one-time expense. We're gonna do that next year. So that's $1,800 could be somewhere else. But those kind of infrastructure things is foreseeing what may happen in the future and planning for that, instead of, hey, by the way, we gotta have a pole up here, you know? So, I don't wanna spring, now, I will be honest with you, there may be a time where I have to spring something on you if we have, you know, roof falling in. We gotta do something, you know, right then. So anyway, the budget is just like your home budget. It's a plan to spend your money wisely, but it doesn't mean it's gonna always work out just like you planned it. All right? Any other questions? Okay. I don't have any other questions. We'll be, back together here in February for our board meeting. And we'll, have some agenda items on that date. So, no other questions? Yes, sir.
We have the beer board meeting Monday.
Beer board meeting will be Monday, the 23rd, 6 P.M., right here.
I mean, I'm just gonna check.
That's right, yeah. All right. Appreciate your time. Anybody want a motion to adjourn this planning session?
I so moved.
All right, Carter?
I second if I
All
have
right,
to.
got a second. All right. We'll go eat some ice cream. All right.